Stefan Weitz, currently CEO at HumanX, but also, in your own words, former big tech exec, private equity survivor,
Yeah,
general partner for Silver Circle, angel investor, three times founder, a lot of other stuff. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Center for Social Capital.
absolutely. Pleasure to be here. I compensate for not being talented by doing a lot of things.
Well, that works. That works.
Right? It's
It's being
amazing.
done. It's called being dynamic.
There you go.
You're
Yeah, or I
very
can fail at one thing and they don't know because other things are happening. So it's
There
like
you go. Yeah.
it's like a three-card Monty of careers.
Well, it's jack of all trades, but we won't say the latter part.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Well, you were absolutely delightful. And let me just say, I mean, the reason really you're here is because you graciously invited me to your extraordinary event, HumanX, which was one of the greatest, hands down, conferences I have ever attended in my entire life. And
Wow.
yeah, and I am not, I mean, sometimes I'm prone to hyperbole, but this is not one of those times. It was just it was truly an exercise in taking care of people.
Mm,
And I mean, you could assign that to a class for, how to learn how to take care of people. And since that's what we're all about at the
right.
Center for Social Capital, people centric business leadership, I was blown away by that. And I said, we have to talk to Stefan and we have to honor him for what he's doing and talk more about why he's doing it this way. And so first thing I want to just start off with is, what made you make this event? Which, if people don't know what it is, tell them a little bit more about it. But it is one of the
Sure.
greatest, AI events in ever known to man.
Oh my
And
goodness. Well, now
but
we're
it is
going full
really
hyperbole here. Yeah.
it is really focused on access to speakers and
Yeah.
taking the time to work with all the people that attended. You were great to media, but tell our viewers and our readers a little bit about what HumanX is and why you started
Sure, happy to. And thanks for having
it.
me, and thanks for all the praise. It's not. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. But HumanX, it's funny. We gave it that name very deliberately. But let me back up as to what it is for those who don't know or weren't there. So I'm a nerd, been a nerd since I was a little kid, writing code since I could basically walk. And I've always loved this notion of humans and technology coming together to do better. And I was a Star Trek kid, Star Wars kid, Knight Rider kid, you name it. I was into sci-fi because I was really just enamored by this ability for, again, technology to radically advance purpose and meaning and quality of outcomes for humanity. Forget the Terminator; that was a love movie too, but not the same thing. And so so I did spend all my years at Microsoft and technology kind of working towards that goal in different areas. And I kind of reconciled with myself the fact that just because of the progression of technology and where it was going, like I probably wasn't going to get Knight Rider in my lifetime. Their kit. I probably wasn't going to get a C3PO companion in my lifetime. It just we weren't seeing the kind of step function changes that are required to really imbue human intelligence into systems. Uh, and then, of course, we saw transformers come out, and we saw these new technology models come out. And look, a transformer model, no one would argue is intelligence. It's not. It's statistics. But certainly, that showed us, what GPT showed us initially, and the LLMs after that showed us, was a new way for humans to interact with systems, with computers, in a way that could radically expand how more people can access technology. Keep in mind, like a few years ago, if you wanted to go write an app that would remind you to drink more water at 3 times a day, you'd have to learn literally how to set up a dev environment, how to create a hosting environment, how to write the code, how to propagate it, how to manage it.
Yeah.
And it is a real craft and a skill that people have to learn, and they were paid very well to go do that. And now my mother, not my mother, but my mom, maybe her slightly younger friend, could go and go to a system like a Replit or a Lovable or these other great products, and they could build it themselves, and propagate that. So this freeing of humanity from having to learn a different language to make things, new things, was really incredible. So I was very excited that this came out. And so we started talking to my friends who now run big companies across the planet. And asked them this a couple of years ago, well, how are you using AI? How are you using AI? How are you using this amazing gift we've been given? And the answer was generally pretty bad. It was generally either a combination of like, we're crushing it, which they totally weren't, or I'm not really sure, which is probably more accurate, or, we got kind of a plan, we think it's okay, and it probably wasn't. And it wasn't their fault, but because it was just moving so quickly. So I said, look, if we are relying on the enterprises, the companies that most of us as consumers actually end up experiencing AI through, if we're relying on them to take the technology and turn it into something which we can all benefit from, we're going to miss the mark. We're going to underdeliver on the promise. We're going to overshoot and make huge messes. So I said, how do we build an event or really a community? That's what HumanX is, to bring people together, to bring together the folks who are building these great AI tools, those who are using them internally, those who are buying them, those who are investing in them. How do you create that community that allows us to truly, all of us, to better benefit from AI in society? So that's the rationale for HumanX, why we did this.
So a community, first of all, which is such a powerful word. I love that word, and it very much was an incredible community when I attended. A community of people, first of all, not machines, people, to use this machine, this new machine, AI, as a tool to help humanity, right? Am I pretty? Yeah.
I mean, look, there's humanity. There's a profit motive. There's lots of different ways this gets used, right? You can use it for pure altruistic purposes. You can use it for creative purposes. You can use it to make your business more efficient, make more money. Like, there's a ton of different ways. But at the end of the day, AI is still a tool. Now, will the tool become a smarter hammer and hammer all of us into the ground? Who knows? But we have to remember that this is still a tool. It is not super intelligence yet. It may never be. There's lots of debates on that. But yeah, I mean, so for now and for the foreseeable future, it is something that more people can harness than ever before in human history. I mean, sure, you could argue that any person could pick up a hammer and hammer a nail into a piece of wood, and that's correct. Most people could do that. But you could not argue that anyone 5 years ago could have an idea to build something, build a company, build a tool, build a system, and go do it. It just wasn't possible. And now you can. And we've seen companies in the AI space that have sold for 9-10 figures that were founded by a single person. Altman famously said a couple of years ago, I think it was Altman, it won't be long until we see the first $1 billion solo entrepreneur company. And indeed we did with OpenClaw. And so it's just a fundamentally different era. Not to get too fantastical about it or oversell it, but it is probably the most both empowering tool humanity's ever had, and also probably the scariest tool we've had, because we are all seeing the acceleration in the industry, and we're seeing negative effects. We're seeing positive effects on people and workplaces. And we're seeing negative effects on kind of the apprenticeship model for a lot of these really vertically specific industries that are realizing you probably can do a lot of things more effectively with an AI system than you can with a person out of college. So there's lots of implications. But at the end of the day, it is still a tool, and it's up to us as humans to learn how to leverage it for the betterment of all of us, not just for the enrichment of a few.
So powerful. And I love the way you ended that off. Couple of things you said that I just want to, reiterate, that it's not super intelligence AI, and
right.
You saying that is far more informed than me saying that, having not come from a technical background. But I say that all the time, and I hope to God that I'm right. But so it's nice to be confirmed by you, and so because I'm always telling people I don't think what we need to worry about is AI replacing humanity right now. But we do need to worry about the things that you talked about, which is how we use the hammer, right? Are we going to use the hammer constructively to create opportunities for humanity, which I think there are so many from AI.
So many, so
Yeah.
many.
But we can
Yeah,
also use it to hammer people into the ground if we wanted to. And,
absolutely.
but it sounds like you're on board with me in so much as thinking or believing that, we have these two potentialities. I think there's far more, greater potential than there is negative potential. But we have to teach people that, and we have to lead people to that, and we have to show people how that can work. And I think you're doing that in a big way with your conference.
Well, that's very kind. Yeah, look, it's it, this will ultimately be a benefit for all of humanity, whether it's solving our energy crisis or our climate change across the planet, whether it's solving certain diseases that have been with us for years, whether it's creating things like new catheters to prevent infections in hospitals, which take out lives of so many people. And an AI figured out how to do it better literally overnight. And then something we haven't figured out for 100 years. So like that will happen. The the challenge, and if you talk to like one of my friends is a very very well understood and published economist at Harvard, and he and I often debate this topic. And I usually defer to him because he's at Harvard and smarter than I am. But sometimes I'm like, I don't think you're right here. But the thing that he always talks about, of course, goes back to is the lamplighters. So lamplighters were out of a job as well when electricity came out, and you went from street lamps lit by powered by whale oil and guys, I think mostly just guys, going around lighting these things to electricity, which wiped that profession out, obviously. And he brings it up as basically a way of saying those people, found new things to do because now you had electricity, and electricity gave us more options of things, of new factories and new ways of working and new ways of being. And he's absolutely right, absolutely right. And my only rejoinder to that is that it's just a timescale problem. So
Mm-hmm.
that was electricity came out in next, I forget the exact date, 1895, whatever it was, and that took decades for that to kind of propagate through. And so there was time for lamplighters to go figure out new jobs or maybe retire, whatever it might be. What we're seeing now with AI is just the acceleration of progress is itself compounding. And so, we're used to kind of linear models of progress, right? Things build on each other almost a linear fashion. And what we're seeing with AI in particular is really an exponential curve of it getting better. And the speed with which things are being augmented, taken over, accelerated, way past human abilities is so much faster than anything else we've ever seen in history. That's the problem. It's just that there's going to be a really sticky middle and a very uncomfortable displacement of people. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know for how long it will last. But to not understand that will be to our detriment because it's different than anything we've seen before. And so we are going to have pain. There's anyone who says otherwise is simply not paying attention.
And not to oversimplify this, but in your humble opinion, which is incredibly informed, what's the best way forward for everybody? I mean, if you were God and you said, okay, everybody, you need to do this, what would your advice be?
I honestly don't have a great answer, and that's part of the problem. I think, and certainly our governments have no answer. In fact, they don't understand this, and nor will there be an answer. If you told our government or any government, I'm not saying just ours, but really any governing body for that matter, if you said there's a 30% chance that in the next 5 years, a quarter of your working age population will be out of a job, what do you do with that as a governing body? I actually don't know. That do you tax technology? Do you tax agents that are working in businesses all of a sudden? Is there a kind of like when we went from gas cars to electric cars? Certain states that relied on gas taxes to fund their road projects were really impacted. Like Washington State was really impacted. They said we'll put a road tax on electric cars versus a gas tax to make up the difference. Do you do the same thing with AI systems? You saw China recently literally banned, this is China, made it illegal for companies to replace people with AI for the purpose of saving money.
Yeah.
Do you do that? I don't have a good answer. I can tell you, there's a range of outcomes that we've studied and that I've seen, and I've talked to many people who are in positions of power making decisions. Everything from regulation to kind of restricting what AI can do to preserve jobs, which isn't a great long-term solution because other countries will not do that, and then you'll be beat. To wide scale social programs, but then again, how do you pay for that if there's no one paying taxes anymore? To the classic universal basic income, which has been talked about for decades, and frankly has been studied and honestly doesn't have great outcomes. When you look at the longitudinal one that was done in, I think it was Sweden a few years ago. So I don't actually know. I think the people who are my age and maybe our age, we're probably the most, well, I don't know. We are definitely at most at risk for sure. Because many of us are older and been in the same kind of industry for a long time. That industry goes away. You're not going to reskill something that's to something totally different, most likely. The younger people who all the journalists, and I was reading a bunch of stuff over the weekend, all the graduation ceremonies happening, and the younger people who are, the headlines are they're totally screwed because of AI. I think that actually is not 100% correct. Certainly, they're screwed in the sense of having a college degree is not a guarantee to a job out of university or college. And in fact, the first time in a long time, people with college degrees are less employed than those without college degrees right now, which is a fascinating stat that I just saw. And so that's a challenge. The opportunity, when I talked to young people, I was with a bunch of them this weekend, talking to them, and a bunch of them were nervous about graduating, and they were trying to figure out what to do. And I said, "This is the best time to be you." And I'm not sugarcoating this because it's going to suck. If you came out of college thinking you're going to be, and you're a CS major, and you're going to go be a software engineer at an early stage company, like, yeah, that's probably not going to work out as well as you may have thought it would work.
Yeah.
But if so many people at this point have the opportunity to go build something on their own, which they never could have built 5 years ago. So that's where the lamplighter analogy works pretty well in the sense that, sure, lamplighters were displaced because electricity came up. The difference now is that people, especially young people out of university or out of college, who have more pliability in their thinking, in their brains, their ability to go build something net new, which hasn't been built before, maybe because it wasn't financially feasible to build something, maybe because the audience wasn't big enough for a large company to build. All that has changed. So I tell a lot of folks, my parents ask me all the time, what should my kids study? I'm like, resilience, entrepreneurship.
I love that. Yeah.
Solving problems, flexibility, that grit, like that's the game. Nothing else I can think of I could recommend that people study because I don't know the answer as to how much longer it'll be around. So
honestly, I think that actually is amazing advice because and an amazing solution. I mean, I talk about all the time how I actually have a very opposite view of AI in that I think it's simply exposing our weaknesses in that, maybe we weren't teaching our kids to think enough. Maybe we weren't teaching our kids to be resilient enough. Maybe we weren't teaching them to be flexible enough. And, this is going to make them be all those things, whether they want, to or not. So, or whether we know how to teach them to be that or not. But it will make us, I think, actually more human and look at what humanity can do that AI can't, and use that more, the ability to create and think inventively, which, AI is not super intelligence yet. It's not going to be able to come up with the same incredibly insightful ideas that we can if we're really thinking creatively. I'm a little biased as a writer,
of course.
I actually, I'll do these fun little experiments where I'll, give AI the same starting point as I do with information, and then see what the two different articles look like. And it's like night and day. I'm like, wow, AI's articles sucked compared to mine.
Okay.
And,
all right.
So it's, I've tested it out. But I think the important thing is the intention more than anything else. We may not have all the solutions, but I think your intention of trying to understand, to lead people in the direction of people is so important. And I want to just touch upon where that comes from a little bit because, you came from a field, obviously big tech, that is not typically known to be very people centric or human friendly, and you left, and you had you had a challenging time health wise in your
Mm.
life, and if you wouldn't mind sharing that, I think our viewers would love to know about that and how maybe that made you a little more sensitive and a little more of who you are
Mm.
today.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky to be very clear, right? But yeah, 21 years ago, I guess now, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is not a great disease to have. There are many worse ones, don't get me wrong. But yeah, autoimmune disease that has an unpredictable outcome. You know, some people end up in wheelchairs after 2 years. Some are fine forever. Most aren't at the end. But they caught mine really early. I have great doctors and people who do very progressive and interesting things for the last 21 years. So I'm thankfully have no actual real effects at all, which is great. But you don't know. It's a ticking time bomb, right? I've been fine for 21 years. And then it could smack me, upside the head here next year, and that's the end of that. So, I think uh, that gave me the incentive to kind of hurry up to a certain extent, because you never know if today is the last day
Sure,
that you're
sure.
able to. And again, for me, like being in a wheelchair would not be great, but it wouldn't, that's okay. I'm not a basketball player, so I can still get around. The more pernicious thing for me in MS was just the unpredictability of the mental degradation that it can generate. You have plaques in your brains and plaques in your spine, and things can go haywire. So that was the scariest thing for me was, again, I'm not playing basketball, so if I'm in a wheelchair, so be it. If I lose the ability to be able to hold lots of information in my head, if I lose my executive function, if I lose the ability to put things together in interesting and new ways, that's what gets impacted in many cases. That's terrifying. And so that probably, I don't know if I ever thought about it directly, but I'm sure it had this impact on my desire to go build lots of stuff before I no longer could, which was pretty funny. But I will say it's funny. You mentioned early at the top of the question, I was a big tech for a long time, which is absolutely right. But I was a big tech when it was a different time. I was big tech in the 90s, 90s and 2000s, early 2000s. And I will say, at Microsoft in particular, I can't speak for all big tech companies, but at Microsoft, especially in the late 90s or early 2000s, it it was a very people oriented culture, which was,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, now you could argue it wasn't always done for the altruistic reasons. I remember in the early days, the rumor was Bill didn't want clocks in any of the conference rooms or the walls because he didn't want people looking at the time, but he wanted them focused on the job. And for a long time, you had to get a clock in Windows. Actually, putting a clock inside of Windows was a huge controversy for the same reason.
Hmm.
It was a very. I mean, I can remember when I was there. We had soccer fields on campus. We had baseball fields on campus. We had theater troops. We had trivia clubs, and it was like a big college campus. And you didn't leave. Your social network was there, and your people were there, and you trusted people, and you could see them, look them in the eyes, and understand and learn from them. You got mentored by great people who were above you in the hierarchy, but was pretty flat overall. So it was a very. I remember thinking back. I was talking to someone recently about this. Is I wish more people could have experienced growing up in an environment like that at an enterprise, because it did absolutely inform the way I approach even running my teams today, and how I share information and what I share and why I share it. Yeah, it's a very different today. I can't even imagine how that would manifest today in a
Do
company.
you have any thoughts on why that changed so much in that field?
Well, I mean, certainly. Well, I'll tell you why. I mean, I don't know all the reasons that Microsoft was so focused on people, um, I mean, from what I've heard and talked to execs about, it was designed on performance. Like the thesis was, if you could take distractions away from people, if you could get their laundry done for them, if you could give them reasons to stay at campus till all hours of the night with breakfast, lunch, and dinner being served, if you could do their taxes for them, if you can kind of create all these things that removed distractions, then you have ultimately a higher performing employee. That was it made lots of sense actually. Remove all the ancillary stuff, and you can just focus on building really cool products. So that was, and of course that has benefits, right? People work longer, people more engaged, and so I think people tried to kind of imitate that. I mean, Google obviously, I'm not saying they're imitated, but they have also incredible benefits down there. Same kind of concept, you know. focus on the job, not on all the ancillary stuff that can be outsourced more effectively. Um, so I think those were classic ones. It costs a lot of money, to do this stuff really well for your employees. Luckily, software has high margins, so you can actually afford to spend the money on employees like that. If you're working at a 10% margin or 5% margin business, I'm not sure where you have the cash or capacity to go and do that for people. But certainly in software, that was a big ability to do that. So it may still be. I mean, I know Microsoft these days, it doesn't have the same level. It's much bigger and it's much more corporate. Oh, it's all a phenomenal company. But yeah, I don't know at what point it shifted for people being like fungible widgets versus being
Yeah, yeah.
versus being more enmeshed in the feeling like you owned the outcome of the company. It's a big deal.
Yeah. So you obviously are very focused on people and very focused on doing whatever you can in your career to promote the welfare of people. Uh, did your experiences with your health or just general your experiences in your youth? I know you told an amazing story at the event of when you were a kid and you were working on your computer for the first time, and it was really just it kind of blew me away about how the cursor came on and you said, "How long will it wait?"
Yeah.
And the idea that machines wait for us, which that's an incredibly powerful anecdote for just summing up a human-based perspective, on machines and
Yeah.
whatnot. And
Yeah.
so you obviously had that from a young age, in some way, shape, or form. So, is this something that you think, was this part of your youth? I mean, were your parents very human centric, people centric? Were they people that were, very connected uh, to that concept, that idea? I'm always curious where this comes from in life and when people are very good with people.
I don't think they were not, but they weren't, that wasn't their focus. So no, my dad's a mathematician, a career scientist. My mom is an incredible mother to four kids. Uh, so no, I don't think so. I think it's funny. Not sure I consider myself people centric in the classical sense. I think for me, kind of, and this depends on who you are, but I look at success in life as more purpose and meaning and fulfillment than I do material things or ownership or money or anything else. So when I build teams, clearly I pay them money, and that's going to have to live until EBI comes in. Um, but I don't. I probably focus. I know I focus less on that, the comp, if you will, than I do on, okay, what are you doing? Why are you in this job? And even jobs that may seem simple or may seem, not menial, but like that at the early stages of someone's career where you're doing a lot of sometimes just crap work in some cases. How do you leverage that to take it forward to build something which you can be proud of and you can have meaning in, and you can find your purpose. I mean, I had a chief of staff here. You may think you met him, Cam, at HumanX, who's a brilliant young person, just graduated from university. And so this job, I say, look, you're welcome to come, but this job literally is like scheduling, figuring out people are going to be, getting us the right meeting at the right time, getting briefings and everybody. Like it's, kind of a menial job. But he was like, no, 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 not at all. Because to him, what he saw was I get to go sit back with Al Gore backstage and meet Fei and talk to VCs I
Yeah.
want to speak with, and I can now have all our emails. I can talk to Nico Rosberg, who's a big F1, crush, if you will. And so he viewed that as really a way to kind of create purpose and meaning and value, even though the job itself wasn't that interesting, I think. And that's this is a long answer, maybe it's not an answer at all. But to me, when I think about we say I'm good, I focus on people, I do, but not in the classical sense. I push people very hard to do things that will give them increased capacity to do something better. And that's maybe that's my good old German DNA of just always just self-improving, and how do you iterate, and how do you, that's what brings me the most joy. And so I try to make other teams, and not everyone loves that. Some people are like, what are you doing? This is stressful. I don't want to be growing daily. I want to just do my job and go home and read a book. But that's how that's my love language, I guess, to people in business.
Yeah. So it's funny that you said that as if that was not typically what people centric is. That's actually kind of how we define people centric. And
Well, good.
so, because we talk about it not as a soft skill, but as a very real practical skill for business and for life, which is, developing people, respecting value, giving people more value, helping people to develop value and purpose. And, that is all part of being in the human community and realizing how we
Yeah.
interact and how we work together. And so, we actually shy away from companies that just say nice things
Yeah.
and,
Right.
like to have big kumbaya parties and be like,
Oh,
oh, we love our people. We
yeah.
just laid
Yeah.
off half of them, but we
Yeah.
love them.
You have this accessories poster on the wall that says ambition. I just exactly. I just can't take it.
yeah.
Can't take it.
So and your event really does. I mean, I saw the way you treat your people, and it's extraordinary. And your people work so diligently and so hard for you because I think they do see that people centric desire in you to be respectful and to be to give them opportunities. And you're very connected to everyone you work with in a huge way, and they look out for you in a huge way. So again, it may sound like I'm just like totally going off about you here, but I am, and it is because you have one of the best run companies I've ever seen, and certainly one of the best events. So I really appreciate you taking the time to
Yeah.
share all this. I mean, you have such nuggets of wisdom to share on AI as well as on events and how to do an event. So I would very much suggest and endorse anyone going to your event. And you have, is it 3 that you have now?
Two.
Okay.
Yeah. God, do I have a third? Oh God, did someone not tell me?
So it's oh no, you know what I thought, because you're changing where one of them is.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
What,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
So one of them is going to be in Las Vegas, right?
That's right.
And when is that?
That's next March 6th through 9th.
Okay.
So
and then
exciting.
The upcoming one is
that is in Amsterdam.
The fancy one, right? You're doing it in
Well, we're just doing it in Europe. Yeah, I mean, don't tell the team that. Yeah, no, that happens at the end of September. But definitely, that's going to be the European. Europe's an interesting place because it's not just an American event, but in Europe, it really is focusing on how Europe is using AI and using it differently. And it's a whole different seat because Europe is, in some cases, not as risk on, if you will, as the U.S. is, and how they're thinking about deploying technology and deploying AI. So they have that, and I think also the U.S. is more cavalier, more cowboyish, if you will, in how we're doing it, and both sides can learn from each other. Honestly, like Europe can learn more of the. If I look at the funding rounds in Europe versus the U.S., I look at the capital being deployed versus the U.S. Yeah, it's far smaller. Just the risk appetite is just not, in general, not as aggressive. But when they do deploy things, they generally kind of they tend to work for people, and we're much more on the U.S. side, more focused on building the next amazing thing. And sometimes don't ask just because we can, should we? So that's
that's like, wow. Well, and again, it promotes that idea of community, right? The community that is the world community that we need to bring together to really have the best ideas for how to develop this thing in the most human-centric and most beneficial and effective way. So the more people and minds we have involved in contributing to that, the better. I heartily recommend anybody that wants to know more about AI or just wants to meet incredible business leaders in an incredibly accessible way. I honestly think it's the best bang for your buck you could possibly invest in any event. So anybody
Well,
that's
thank
listening,
you. I
I heartily
appreciate that.
suggest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
how do they sign up? It's just go to the website, right?
HumanX.co. Yeah. HumanX.co. HumanX.co. And then you can go there, register for Amsterdam, register for the US, register for both. It's great. It's good fun.
And if
But
there's
yeah.
capable speakers that want to be involved too, can they reach out through the
Yeah.
website?
You can reach out there as well. Yeah, exactly. Reach out there as well. So you
Okay,
can do it.
wonderful, wonderful. Hey, Stefan, thank you so much. This has been
Oh, Chris, pleasure.
wonderful, and I look forward to more talks with you and spending more time with you, and really appreciate you taking the time here today.
Anytime, my friend. Good to see you. Thanks for coming down, and thanks for all the kind words. And let us know how we can improve too. That's as the team knows, number one thing I always ask.
I love that. Humble as well.
No.
Thank you, Stefan.